Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Gaming Show. It is June 22nd, 2019, and I am your co-host, Ryan, joined by...
Your co-host, Lobos.
I like that you added co-host this
You
time
added
around.
co-host, so I had to add co-host too. Otherwise, it would seem like this is my show, and that's not the case. It's a shared show, totally.
That is a shared show, and today we're playing Mega Man 2.
That's right.
And we're actually taking a look at some of the footage here. We've started at the title screen, and we're going to go all the way to the credits over the next hour. So at the very beginning here, we have a cutscene. Actually, I think this is really cool because when it scrolls up to see Mega Man, you see his hair blowing in the wind, and I never really knew that Mega Man really had hair. Like, if you were to just look at Mega Man, he's always got his helmet on.
Sure, and I think that's the point. You're supposed to be like, oh man, he's humanized. He's more than a robot, maybe. Or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe they just have really realistic looking robots.
Well, so we learned that Dr. Light created Mega Man. So we know that he might be part human, but he's definitely some sort of creation, like a robot. So the story is that Dr. Light created Mega Man, and then Dr. Wily beat Mega Man or was beating on him or something like that. And so Dr. Wily created 8 robots to counter this devastating beast. And actually, I think it's more than 8 robots because as we're going through the level, there's 8 robot masters, but there's not just 8 robots in the game.
There's infinite robots because
there really
if you go back and forth, they'll just keep spawning. So
yeah,
no end to the robots.
So in this game, you basically are sent to a title screen. Well, not a title screen, more of a stage select screen. You can choose any one of 8, bosses to start, boss stages to start on.
I would call that early open world, almost, right?
Sure.
It's like you can go any of these 8 places from the get-go.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
And you can go whatever way. Any weapon you get, they're like, yeah, we'll balance it. It'll be balanced. You can make it work.
Well, so, yeah, everyone's going to choose a different stage to start on, and it's really interesting to talk about what people might choose. So I think I sort of remember playing this game as a child, so I was a little biased. I'm like, I think Flashman was the one you should go to, but I wasn't entirely sure. Who do you go with first here?
Always Metal Man. Metal Man and Quick Man, because I'm pretty sure the Busters work pretty well against both of them. B, Metal Weapon. At the end, Metal Weapons is extremely good in many cases. It can shoot diagonally, below Mega Man, straight up, all this
diagonally.
Stuff.
Okay, we'll talk about how you do that, because I have no idea.
Absolutely. Plus, it's super effective against so many bosses.
But I do want to talk quickly about Flashman here, because we're just getting to the end of him as a boss. So again, I started with him. And when you jump into his boss room, really the only threat is him plowing into you.
Yeah, it's kind of running around.
He's got this attack. So the stage is sort of this multi-leveled step area, and it's basically you're trying to jump around him as he's trying to run into you, and occasionally he'll freeze time or whatever and then try to shoot you, but often the angles don't line up, so he just misses you.
He'll just shoot like straight in front of him, kind of.
Now, the thing with Flashman, I never associated him with ice. I wonder if this was a translation thing, because when I was thinking Flash, and when you see his attack, I got the idea like this has got like a Flash stop time sort of thing.
Yeah, that's what I was getting too. But
you even get the item time stopper. And it wasn't till I was going through this level again where I was like, well, this is really weird because there's ice on the ground.
It is.
So maybe they're thinking more of like a Flash freeze sort of boss.
No, that totally makes sense. And I never thought about that either. I thought it was just like Flash Bang, right? Like something like that.
Yeah. So when you complete Flashman, you get 2 things. You get the Flash or the time stop ability, and you get item 3. Which item 3? What does item 3 do?
Item 3 is the one that like bounces, I think.
I think you're right.
And then you can if it lands over a gap or something, it'll float up. It's kind of weird. I played this the other day, and I still don't. I'm not 100% sure on what exactly it did.
What's funny is they give these cool names to the weapons. Like, you get like you get the metal. What was it? Metal blade or.
Probably,
I don't know. Heat shot, quick boomerang. I don't remember the names. I have them written down here.
Yeah.
But and then you have like item 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
So it's like, why did they not have a name that you could? Because I guess how would you quantify that, or how would you describe that, like bouncy platform thing?
I guess so. Like and getting item 1 doesn't necessarily make me too excited. In the context of the game, I'm like, oh, I got Metal Blade from that other boss. What am I going to get from this guy? Item 2. And you're like, oh, okay. But then you use it and you're like, oh, okay, I see this has applications. It's pretty cool.
It does, yeah. There's a couple, I think. So the next level I actually jump into was the Quickman.
Quickman.
Is that right? Yeah, I think this is Quickman. And right off the bat, yeah, so I use item 3 and it bounces up the wall. So there's an extra life to the left of the start of Quickman's stage, and you can use item 3 to just get that extra life. So that's kind of cool. Now, it's sort of interesting that once you apply a power, whether that be the time stopper or item 1, 2, or 3, you can't actually switch weapons until the power has been depleted.
Notably, you can't pause the game at all, which means you couldn't use an E-Tank if you're in danger, which we didn't talk about E-Tanks, but... E-Tanks are new to the Mega Man series with this game, which are basically stored health that you can, when you're in trouble, activate it and it'll fully fill your health.
Oh, you know what? I didn't use that the entire game.
Oh, well, it would have helped.
But I did pick up some E-Tanks. I just never thought to use it.
Well, there you go.
Now, granted, I did play a normal difficulty because I was like, well, let's go through here as the designers intended. But sounds like it's not actually the way they intended. This was normal mode was something new added to the North American version, or I should say the subsequent release after Japan. So the original Mega Man, aka Rockman, only had one difficulty, which was essentially the difficult version of here. But I played normal here, and then after I realized that, I went through and played some on difficult. I was like, yeah, you can totally tell the difference.
I also played on normal because I'm an American pleb, as they knew. I think the difficult is just they have more health, like things have more health and deal more damage. Yes. I assume
it's either that they have more health or you do less damage. I'm not quite sure which one.
Now here you're employing Flashman's weapon to pause these. This is one of the most notorious parts of this game where there's multiple long beams that will stretch across the screen and you have to descend as quickly as possible while these platforms are blocking you while you fall. And Flashman's weapon just seems to freeze them entirely.
Flashman does it, and I still end up dying. But Flashman's weapon's really overpowered. However, when I went through on difficult, I'm like, well, designers couldn't have expected you to use this, so I wanted to learn how to do it without it. So I actually succeeded a couple times completing that without using the time stop. And you have to know where to fall. So when you fall to the bottom of the screen will transition and you go down to the next screen lower. But you have to already be moving in that direction to really hit those timings. So the lasers coming at you are very demanding in how they want you to move. So it does require you to sort of know the stage. But that's really kind of cool because it has that sense of memorization. It's like once you do it, you have the flow and you know exactly how to do that.
That's right.
But it is a little challenging to get to that point.
Yeah, so actually, I don't think there are very many cases, except for required cases, where I used weapons in the levels. Yeah. Because I'm seeing you like use Flashman to stop that. Yep. Like I didn't do that. I just did stuff, which probably made it harder overall. But you know, it's possible without the things. It's just nice to see that things get easier when you use them as utility.
Yeah, so we've made it to Quickman, his boss room, and again he has sort of this. He also has a raised platform, multiple raised platforms like Flashman, but his mechanics are he jumps up in the air, and he'll either shoot boomerangs in like a triple shot, so one directly under him, and then one to like 20 or 30 degree angle outwards. And so he'll shoot that either directly down as he's jumping over you, or he'll jump kind of to the side of you and throw it out horizontally. And for this boss, I used the Mega Buster. seemed to work. I don't know. What do you think, Lobos?
Yeah, like I said, I usually go Quick Man and Metal first. But if you didn't know, you came here with Flash Man's weapon, and if you use Flash Man's weapon, it completely freezes him, and his health ticks down to about half.
Yeah, so, actually, I do use that later on in the game.
Nice.
So that is a really good strategy, and ultimately, what I would end up doing, because when you die, your power doesn't recharge. So it's like you have to collect power-ups even if you die. You don't get like a full reset. Your health will recharge, but nothing else will.
Right. And Mega Man was really, I think, the first game where I fell in love / had to grind a little bit and farm.
Absolutely.
And they have spots in the levels that seem very designated for like, here is where you farm now.
Yep.
We know that last section was hard. Here's a bunch of non-threatening enemies that just constantly spawn that you can just keep killing and get all your stuff back.
Yep. Yeah. And so, again, to prevent having to do that grinding, what I ended up doing was once I got Quick Man down to about, say, half health or so, then I'm like, all right, well, this is a pretty guaranteed kill. So I'm going to freeze him here, and he might have a little bit, but I felt good about draining all my power there.
Sure, yeah.
But that was one of the things I had to try to do as much as possible, was remove any of that grinding here from the videos. Because like you said, there were times where you're like, all right, well, I'm going to come up on a boss here, or I just need a little bit more life to proceed. And you sit there for 5-ish minutes and just kind of shoot little guys. I almost feel like in difficult mode, the power-ups come out less frequently. I don't know if that's statistically true, but it sure felt like it when I was playing.
I'm not sure. Well, you quickly just barreled through Metal Man stage.
Yeah, Metal Man.
You approach Metal Man, who chunks just blades at you and kind of jumps around randomly, and also has a like a treadmill on the bottom of the floor that will push you in various directions.
So here's another tip I didn't realize until I went through on difficult. If you use the flash power, it will stop the treadmills.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so there you go. A little pro strategy there. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The boomerangs seem to do a real good job on killing Metal Man. And I get the metal blade, which Lobos has told me that's his favorite weapon.
I mean, it's the best. It works on so many bosses. Like, it's good against Woodman. If you go back to refight Metal Man later in the game, it one-shots Metal Man. It's so good. And Mega Man 2, at least, when you use your weapons, every weapon has a limited amount of use, but most of them are so small. And Metal Man's, you can just chunk off like 100 blades without having to refill, but you're constantly getting refills, so it's just you always have that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and you pointed out something interesting. I just want to make a call back to is that Mega Man 2, Metal Man is actually weak to his own weapon, which is really cool because that does come into play later on when there's a boss gauntlet there. And I think you said it one-shots him?
It one-shots him, yeah. So it's kind of like a comical thing, too. You figure it out, you're like, oh, okay. All right.
That's really cool.
That makes it easy.
Yeah. So after I completed Metal Man, I was like, all right, well, we should do Woodman next. But I was thinking, I'm like, okay, what's Woodman going to be weak to? Is it going to be Metal Man with his blades? Okay, I can see that. You're cutting down a tree, or Heat Man, where you're burning the tree. And I was like, I'm gonna try Heat Man. So the next thing I did was jumped into Heat Man's level.
Heat Man stage is pretty brutal. There's a lot of platforming. There's all sorts of pits and lava to fall into to instantly die. Yeah. I know I spent several lives on here, especially at the end. There's a notorious other end part that that you have to kind of memorize the pattern of appearing and disappearing blocks as you jump across a treacherous pit and make your way to the end there.
And when you're going over these pits, there's these little, I don't know what they're really supposed to be, like little steel cylinders that are floating in the air, and they will knock you off the platform and try to put you in the lava. And I just don't know what those are. They're like cylinders, but they're just metal. They're pretty easy to kill, but they start higher than you. So as they kind of drop down on you, and you have to time your positioning. But we're actually coming up on the spot that you were talking about, which was the metal, or the platforms that appear, and you have to know the sequence of them. Right.
Yeah, they kind of introduced the mechanic to you pretty briefly and easily. There's not much risk of you falling off while you're trying to figure out how this platform works. And then it just gets progressively a little more difficult, adding blocks that would appear above you where you need to time a jump. So you jump on one appearing platform, wait a second, then jump, and then the second one will appear underneath you as you're in midair, and then you'll land on it. Otherwise, you have to keep doing that to get the timing right before you can move on.
One of the things they do really well, though, is they have such a cadence on when they're spawning. And when I see these appear, we don't have the volume up, but I can hear the noise. It's like, yeah. And it's almost like a rhythm game sort of thing, where it's like you got to hit the button in time with the music there. So this really became a staple of Mega Man. When I think about Mega Man, there's a couple things I think about, but one of these mechanics they always use is the blocks that just appear and disappear. And in other games, ramp up the difficulty here.
And now in Mega Man 2, at least, the way that these spawn is based on when you scroll them that area onto the screen. So if you move slower, you can have them spawn at different times, which is worse.
Oh, that's interesting.
You generally want to approach at the same, because otherwise they'll be alternating when they're actually appearing.
So you want to be moving at a consistent pace.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much. Once you get going, then the rate at which they appear and disappear anyways kind of keeps it all in check. But if you start it off kind of weird, then you can put yourself in a bad place.
We're at this spot where there's a very long segment of the appearing blocks. And this is a great example of what I consider great game design, is that we've been introduced to this mechanic in a light way, where it's like there's no fail state. And then we get to the stage where there's this very long segment that we're on. But the first half of it, again, is just kind of a reset and retry. So if you fall, you hit the ground, nothing lost. But as you get about halfway through, now you're over lava, and so you're like, okay, well, now the stakes have really ramped up.
Oh, yeah.
And that's really exciting to get to that point where there's no safe spot, and you're like, I have to keep making these jumps.
Right. And I will say that there's one part that's a little unfair, because you kind of have to learn from it, where you do, while you're jumping across, you're just waiting for the next block to appear to figure out where to go. And one does appear above you, which you can only know by trial and error.
And
so
it's most likely what's going to happen is you're going to jump, hit your head on it, and be like, oh, I died.
Yep.
But you learn that, and because there's really no other landmarks around, you have to look at it and be like, all right, I think there's like 6 or 7. On the 7th one, jump straight up and then jump across. And so you kind of mentally keeping track of all this. So it's really, really cool. But after you finish that, you have a little journey down the ladder, and you get to Heat Man. And I tried to use the metal blades on this. I don't know why. I just kind of try to use all the different weapons on the bosses. Yeah. But ultimately, I don't think the metal blades work as much as you were all about the metal blades.
No, it's true. It's not always great, but a lot of times it is. And I think I usually come to Heat Man after I've done Bubble Man, so I've got his watery weapon to take him down.
So I face him a couple times here. I think I end up using the quick shot, but he's actually fairly easy. His pattern is that he'll shoot sort of a segmented fire at you that will plume from the ground, so you have some space in between them to stand. And then he'll put this damage shield on. He kind of radiates with fire.
Yeah.
And then it looks like immune because your bullets will bounce off him.
Yeah.
And then he'll do this charge at you, which is actually pretty easy to jump over. And so once you get the idea of just like, all right, shoot him 2 or 3 times, jump over the thing, dodge the fireballs, boom, you got it. I used the Mega Buster to kill him on this one.
Yeah.
And that worked out.
Seemed like it was pretty good.
And I think also the quick shot, I think in later boss fight against him, I used the quick shot, and that seems to work out okay. But yeah, absolutely right. The bubble shot is by far the best weapon. And you get atomic fire.
Atomic fire.
Atomic fire.
Specifically, it's like the heat is that of an atomic bomb.
And Dr. Light also says, hey, you know what? You've got item 1. We've completed item 1.
Completely in a weird order, but I made 3 before 1. I was thinking ahead, and then 1 took longer to build. So there you go.
So we get equipped with item 1.
And item 1's, if I remember correctly, just you basically shoot out a platform straight in front of you, and then that platform just slowly rises. And I think that's probably one of the more useful ones, just because it's kind of easier to predict than the bouncy one. Yeah. And there are a lot of places, especially in the later stages, where you need to elevate Mega Man to a point. Looks like you're going to Woodman next. Now that you've got fire,
I got fire, and I don't remember if I go in here. We'll find out, but I don't remember if I jump in here. I'm like, okay, let's try fire, or I'm just like, what was I thinking? Just use Metal Blaze. It makes sense.
We'll see.
Now, when you're going through these levels, I think Woodman is one of them. I started to really notice the theme with the creatures they're spawning, because you've got bats that are coming at you, and then you've got rabbits.
To me, it seems to me that just Woodman is just like a nature enthusiast.
Yeah.
And he's just built his area like there's bats hanging in the trees, and unless you wait a while, they're not even going to reach you. So they're just kind of living, doing their thing.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that they are just a passive participant in here, and you're the aggressor.
Yeah, exactly. You're coming in here, and the bats are like, what the hell, man? Although there are these gigantic robot dogs that breathe fire. So maybe that's where he is.
They clearly are built to execute you. So I'm going to go with not all the animals here are the docile creatures.
I mean,
they could
have just eaten like some really hot chili, and now they're just having a fit wherever they live.
Well, so, it's not just bunnies and bats here. After a little bit, you get to the top of the trees. And there are birds that drop their baby eggs on you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't know. It seems like maybe that's how they have to hatch their young, is by dropping the egg so hard on a platform, or maybe a Mega Man, so that all their babies immediately spew out and look for something to eat.
Okay. So that would be an interesting biological evolution, is that they were dependent on Mega Man's coming by to foster, but sure, I'll go with that.
Maybe the birds run into a lot of trouble. Their babies, they spawn in like a swarm of like 8, and they drop items like crazy. So maybe it's more of like a self-defense, where the bird freaks out, drops its babies, and then hopes that the babies will drop health for the bird.
Or it could be a symbiotic relationship where they're saying, hey, Mega Man, we've got all these power-up items for you, and somehow the act of killing their babies, like maybe like, I don't know, fertilizes the land and allows them to... I don't know. I'm just grasping at straws here.
Perfect. But maybe the egg is just a parasite, and then it waits for the right moment to be near a Mega Man, and then it drops and then spawns its young to jump on every unassuming nearby enemy. I don't know.
Well, and again, it's not just birds. We have bunnies that attack.
Yep.
They shoot carrots at
you.
They
do shoot carrots. You're right.
But they're like homing carrots.
They're just trying to feed you. They're just like, here, take my carrots. I have so many.
We have chickens that like little road runners that charge at you.
So. They just jump over you though. They're oh yeah.
So yeah, I actually jump in here. I'm like, all right. I don't even think I bother with the heat. I just jump in there.
Right.
Metal Man, and that works out really well, and he goes down really quickly.
Yeah, so Woodman spawns a little shield of leaves that rotate around him, where he's invulnerable during that. He also drops leaves from the ceiling. I guess he just like hits the wall, and the tree like drops leaves that hurt you.
They do.
So you have to like wait. He'll shoot his shield at you. You can jump over it, avoid the leaves from the ceiling, and then you can get some hits in.
When I envisioned the leaf shield, I always, for some reason, envisioned them as like metal leaves with razors on them. Because I'm like, how else would
razor
leaves
leaf.
Really? Yeah, razor leaf. But
Bulbasaur.
I don't think I've really used the leaf shield. And again, I think this is one of the issues with the leaf shield is you can't have it active while you have anything else. So it's not like you can turn on the leaf shield and then start shooting enemies and be like, oh, I'm invulnerable for a little bit.
So I think you can press and hold the button, and it'll rotate around you for like a second or two, and then it'll shoot off.
I do know that it'll shoot off by default.
Yeah, if you just tap it, it'll shoot the leaves off, but I think if you hold it, it'll rotate around you for a bit.
Yeah.
But I tried that in some cases to use as a shield, and it just didn't even work. So I was like, I don't know what cases it has, but I'm sure there are some, unless they just kind of...
Well, the other thing I want to note here is I don't have the original manuals and the box copy of this. So a lot of times when I'm playing games, I'm doing it very much like, all right, let's play the game and experience the content there. And a lot of times they would have essential information in the manual about, here's the ability, here's the controls for that. And I'm not saying that this one has it, but
sure,
it might be that there was like, oh yeah, leaf shield, here's your 2 things you can do, and it's just I never experimented and never really found the need for it. So yeah, it could be something that's super useful, and like you said, there's different modes to it. But I just never experienced any of that.
Yeah. So we arrive on Bubble Man stage, which is immediately you're struck with potential epilepsy, while the waterfall background is just, it's basically like 2 positions. Almost the whole back of the screen is just water, and it's practically flickering, so that you're just going. It's a big distraction technique, I like to think, from Bubble Man.
Oh yeah.
And then again, we have giant frogs that are spewing their babies at you. So we've got a trend here. Clearly, Woodman and Bubble Man have worked together, and even later in the level, Bubble Man,
there's these big whales,
giant fish
shooting
shrimp at you. So maybe it was all Bubble Man's idea in the first place. I don't know. But these ever spawning shrimp are actually really good for farming. If you're low on lives, you can this thing will just keep spewing and spewing shrimp babies at you. And
and they have little jellyfish that come down from the top of the screen. And this is the first area, because there's spikes at the top of the screen. This is the first time I started to really realize that there was 2 different jumps. There's the tap to have a little tiny hop, and then there's if you hold it down, you have a much higher jump. And it's further complicated by when you're in the ocean. It's almost like a low gravity thing, so your jump is much higher than it usually would be. So you have to watch out for the spikes, because they will instant kill you.
Yeah. And then whenever you die, of course, Mega Man explodes in a glorious shower of, I don't know, mega sparks or something.
Mega sparks.
I don't know, but it's very iconic death.
And you can hear the music, or the little sound.
Yeah. It's a good touch. So you traverse through an underwater section, and you emerge back with another waterfall in the background, and there are giant lobsters falling down this waterfall.
And for some reason, this area reminded me of Super Mario 2. I think it was the first level. There's this waterfalls, and there's these logs that are going down.
And you jump on them.
And for some reason, that I just envisioned like these hermit crabs as being basically the same thing. They're kind of coming down.
Platforms that you jump on. Well, I like how that while they're falling down this waterfall, their first instinct is, I need to kill Mega Man. It's like, I don't need to worry about where I'm falling.
And I think they're actually like clapping their hands left and right. They're doing their little pincer things.
Course.
So we make it to the boss here, and I don't know if there's a special weapon for
metal. I think metal does well against it. I don't remember. But actually, I think metal does pretty good. I don't actually remember off the top of my head.
I used the Mega Buster, and that seemed to work out okay. His attacks don't seem too powerful. The bubbles are they're lazy about attacking you. They're like, yeah, one of these days I'll kind of get to you and damage you, but you can kind of just let them be. But the next I go to air level, and so I was talking about you've got the Heat Man, where you've got the blocks that are appearing. But then you have the Airman, and this is the other thing I think is a staple in Mega Man, is they have these big bricks with faces on them, and these 2 horns on either side that raise up. And I feel like every single Mega Man game that I play has this exact thing.
Really?
And so they make it so you have to jump from platform to platform, but the horns, because they are kind of on the sides.
Right.
You have to time the horn coming down, or you have to get enough air to jump over them.
Right. Yeah. And most of the time, you just don't care, and you just jump into the horn.
And then
I'll get health later. I'm sure there's something's going to drop their babies, and I'll eat them or something.
Now, I did want to call out, because we're just seeing now. I guess what I would consider a fat Mega Man.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, so you're coming up on the platforms, and you have this, it's literally, it's Mega Man if he ate too much Burger King. It's
a giant Mega Man with a fan in the center of his chest who, of course, it's Airman stage, so he uses that fan to blow air at you and kind of halt your progression moving sideways. So, yeah, thick
Mega Man. Yeah, I like that. But yeah, he's got like really chubby cheeks. It's pretty adorable.
Yeah. Maybe it was like failed Dr. Wily's attempts to recreate Mega Man, but
or to create Airman, as we're seeing now.
Oh, that's true. This does,
because Airman also has a propeller in his stomach there, and he'll shoot out tornadoes at you, I guess. And then they kind of stay in place and you have to jump over them.
Yep.
And eventually they'll then continue moving and allow you to fight or shoot airman.
Yeah, because the tornadoes will block your shots, so you have to wait for them to start moving towards you, jump over them, and then get a shot or two in on him. I think Woodman works well on Airman, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
I think that 2 shots.
I think I use Boomerang Man. I think my quick shot was your metal shot. I found the quick shot was...
Well, that's why I go quick shot early as well, because it's usually good against stuff. So I don't...
And after you complete Airman, you get Air Shot, and of course item 2. And is item 2 the one that it just traverses horizontally? I think that's what that is.
Yes, and I think I only used it in one stage where I think you have to, or you're designed to, where you just cross a big pit of spikes, and it's really the only way to get across, as far as I know.
So we're coming up on our last stage here, but what's interesting is we're only really halfway through. We're not even halfway through.
That's right.
And so basically what happens is you complete all 8 of the bosses, and then the game kind of begins, or maybe like the other half of the game begins, where it's like now you have all the tools available, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk a little bit about the
this Crashman.
Crashman,
all
yeah.
Right, last stage Crashman. And we haven't talked about it really thus far, but the music in Mega Man 2 is superb, and all of the tracks, of course it's early NES, so there's only 4 channels for all of your audio needs, whether that be sound effects or music or ambience or whatever you want to put into that audio. And the early games really had super solid melodies because you had to hear them over and over and over. So they're beloved tracks that have been covered.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think a lot of music in games these days, fantastic, no doubt about it. But a lot of it is more kind of symphonic or orchestral,
yeah, sure.
Which really suits the needs of the games, but
right.
I think you miss some of that, like really kind of simple tunes that just kind of like, all right, here's a little beat I can kind of jam along with.
Yeah,
there.
These will get stuck in your head the entire day because it's 30 seconds and then it loops again. Yeah. Whereas these orchestral tracks, there's tons of them in one game, and they're like 8 minutes long, so they won't even loop, so you barely get to get a grasp of what's going on. But yeah, anyways, we're on Crashman stage, which has a lot of this gimmick with a platform that has, it's kind of got a track that it just follows along, and you have to jump on this platform to traverse up to a ladder at the top of the screen, while these cylinders you mentioned before are just kind of slowly moving towards you. So it's about kind of micromanaging the enemies on screen, because they'll keep, if you kill one, that'll reappear and start coming at a different angle from where it first was. So you might have to wait to kill one or reposition,
or sometimes even just kind of lead in. You're like, I can't kill this, but I know that I'm gonna get hit, so you try to go to the edge, meet it, and let the iframes and the pushback knock you back to the center of the frame there.
Right, yeah.
But again, I think that this is an example of really well done game design, because they start the track. It's just a simple rectangle.
Sure,
there's nothing complicated about that.
Oh,
but you still have the enemies coming at you. The next one's a little more complicated with some squiggle lines and stuff like that. And then finally you get to the point where there's just this track that it's all sorts of ups and downs and lefts and rights, and you really have to be on top of your game there. And I do believe that it takes me a couple of times here, but I cheat a little bit by using a platform, the number 1, which is the rising platform, to sort of
heck yeah, man,
to jump. There's speed runs there.
Yeah,
right?
speed run strats. Another thing that's funny that kind of little trivia bit is, whenever you spawn the platform, it's got like whatever number it is, item 1, item 2, item 3 on the actual platform. But if you are facing different directions, like if you face left, it'll shoot it left. Face right, it'll shoot it right. And if you're facing left, I think it just swaps the
swaps the number.
Yeah, swaps the number on the actual sprite, because I mean that's it's going a different way, but it actually flips the number. So it's just like, that's not accurate, but I get it. I get it.
Well, they just use probably one texture and flipped it, and then saves memory there.
Precisely.
Now we made it to the boss here, which is Crashman. You find him actually in space, which is interesting.
Why not?
I love the stars here they have in the backdrop. It's really cool. It's multicolored. You know, you got some nice blues and whites there.
That's right.
But he drops these bombs that I think if you get hit by the bomb directly, it'll probably damage you. But they're really there to create sort of this hazard zone where it's like this thing drops down, and after a couple seconds, it will blow up. So
Right.
you have to. He's kind of like putting obstacles in the environment there. So again, I don't really know what to use. I'm like, all right, well, let's try Bubble Man because crash the waves. I'm not sure. I used Leaf Man because I don't know. I haven't found a use for it. So maybe this is the one thing.
Right,
No,
right,
that's definitely not it. And then let's see. I think I end up using Quick Shot. I'm like, yeah, this is. Oh, maybe not. Maybe go to
I believe Airman.
Airman. Yeah,
Airman
I find
like
that
2
one.
shots him practically.
And it's like you can basically just run up to his face and hit him because it'll hit with all 3.
Yeah.
And that seemed to be the best strategy for really clearing out Crash Man.
Yeah, and your Airman weapon is like you spawn 3 little tornadoes and then they travel up. So especially since Crash Man's jumping a lot, you just get underneath him and then fire in the direction he's going, and the tornadoes will just fly up into him.
Yeah, works out a lot.
Yeah,
or works out really well. Then we've completed all 8 masters, and like I said, we're gonna go to Dr. Wily's station after this. But we got Crash Bomber, and for folks that are watching the video, you might have noticed that there's a couple weird-looking segments of wall that are I don't know how to describe them. They're just different looking.
Okay.
And you can use the crash bombs to blow through those to open up shortcuts.
Yeah, they're like metal, like kind of grates or something like that.
Or kind of orangish in color, and they pop out a little bit more. You'll actually need that to kill one of the bosses later on. But since Crash Man was the last one I killed, I just wasn't sure like what are these things here and why do they look different?
Yeah.
And actually, there's a spot which when I rewatched the video, I was laughing at myself because there's a segment where there's 3 of those girders.
Yep.
And it's clear that you're supposed to use your crash bombs to get over them.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But I didn't realize that, so I was like trying to jump over them, and I ended up using my platforms to actually jump over.
To get over
and
them.
I did.
Sure,
but
yeah.
it was kind of funny, and I was like, oh, you idiot, you should have known better.
So you beat all 8 robot masters, and then you have access to Skull Castle.
And actually, what's interesting is this is the first time that that fortress was introduced into the Mega Man series, and that was subsequently, I believe all other Mega Mans or most other mainline Mega Mans had that same sort of thing.
Right, at least the ones that have Dr. Wily as an antagonist.
Oh, are you telling me there are ones without Dr.
Well, once you
Wily?
get to X, it moves to Sigma, and then beyond that, there's others, I think.
Now, not to get off in too much of a tangent,
Sure.
but I feel like I've seen Sigma, and I'm like, that's just Quick Man, right? Because doesn't he have like a boomerang on his helmet or something?
He uses a lightsaber, man.
Oh, maybe
the lightsaber. He's got like these
man.
cool glasses. He's kind of his own breed.
Okay, all right.
Anyways, you get to the first of several Dr. Wily stages, as they're called, and you get hit with again. I have to bring up the music because it's an extremely iconic track. Dr. Wily's theme from Mega Man 2, highly covered and beloved. But also, I noticed the first like 3 enemies you fight in the stage are birds that drop their eggs. So it's all Dr. Wily's fault. It's like he created his creations knowing it's a mess. It's a mess. Don't spawn babies and use them to hurt other people.
Babies are not food. Okay.
Now let's see. I recall this. So there's a lot of ladder climbing in this early section of this level. And this is where metal comes in handy, because while on a ladder, you can shoot diagonally up. You can you can shoot all, like, you can take care of these guys who you normally have to climb up to, and you have to dodge all these bullets.
Wait, can you shoot through walls then?
You can shoot through walls.
Oh my
It
gosh.
crosses the entire screen. It's perfect. It's perfect.
I had no idea.
So you climb in this big ascent with all these ladders.
Now, I actually want to stop you
Sure.
here because I want to see, how do you do this? Because if we watch the video here, so we're basically on this spot where there's a ladder to the right, and there's a ladder to the far, far left. And the way I did it is I spawned 3 number 1s, and you can just barely do it, right? And I'm like, is there a better way to get up there?
That's how I did it. I'm not...
Okay.
I don't know if you can use the... item 2 that just rushes across the screen.
But the problem is you have to.
Enough, right?
It's not high enough, and there's no way to raise it as far as I know. So I guess that's the way to do it. It's just the problem is because when you get to the third one, the ceiling is so high that you kind of bump your head.
Yeah, you have to bump your head.
Now, at the end of this boss here, you fight this kind of like Puff the Magic Dragon like thing, and you're jumping over these blocks. And he just kind of comes out of nowhere. He blows up a couple blocks, and if you're not ready for him, you'll likely die because he's very aggressive on his positioning. He kind of comes out where you would normally be if you weren't rushing ahead.
Right. Yeah.
But somehow I don't know if it's just he's really weak or I did something special, but I feel like I took out half his health by doing nothing other than shooting him a couple times in the face.
He did die really quickly with the Buster. I usually use Quick Boomerang, which might be a slightly better, but honestly, the Buster was very good in that case.
Now here we're at that spot I was talking about. Yeah. There's the 3 girders,
gotcha,
and you have to get through them to progress. And I suppose that this is their way of saying, hey, you need to learn about these things being weak to the crash bomb stuff.
Right.
But I didn't. Again, I had no idea, so I used the platform 1. And lo and behold, you can get to the top of them and jump over them.
Really?
And so what's interesting about that is that then negatively reinforced me. I'm like, okay, well now I didn't learn what this is, and I'm just like, okay, well I guess I have to jump over these.
Oh,
so
wow.
It took a little bit of time here. I don't know if I hit some sort of glitch there because as you can see, it's not super easy to do that.
I don't think that's intended.
Okay.
You just kind of clipped. Interesting, huh? Wow. So yeah, that's interesting because I don't know if it's the boss of this level, but one of these Wily stages has a boss where you have to blow up these walls.
Yeah, I think it's the 4th one there, and at that point, it's one of these where you have to blow through the wall. So I'm like, all right, well, what are my options here?
I will say, in terms of glitches, there was one spot in Heatman stage where the appearing blocks can actually just clip you through the wall you're trying to get over, so it's kind of a speedrun strat, you know.
Okay, and can you like go through walls and stuff?
Yeah, like it clips you while you're trying to jump on one block to get over a big wall. As it's appearing and disappearing, it just clips you through that wall you're trying to get over, so it just saves you the trouble.
Okay.
But
and as you're going to the boss here, there's these spikes that jump down on you when you get close to them. I use the flash power because if you have a flash, they won't drop down, so you don't have to worry about timing. But you finally get to the boss room, and it's this. It's like a square. I don't know how to describe it. It's like a square that you drop into.
Yeah, it's just like a big square room, and the walls are built. The blocks that make up the walls are actually enemies, and the blocks will. 2 at a time will move to each other from opposite sides of the room, and then they converge into kind of like a little robotic turret thing. Yeah. And then you shoot the turret.
And they get faster as the boss gets lower in life. It gets faster and faster.
I had not realized. You know what? I use Metal Blade because I think I one-shot every one of them.
Really?
So.
Okay, because I think the Mega Buster, it takes 2 or 3 shots.
Yeah, 2 shots it looks like.
And so because these things are spawning they collect just slightly higher than you and will come down to your level. What I ended up doing was, so when I play video games, I usually use my thumb. So you have the A and the B button, you swap between those.
Sure.
But for some of these where you have to mash, I would actually swap to use my index fingers and do that, jump, mash, sort of thing.
Yes, advanced technique there.
Yeah, now I suppose that's the thing. If you were really speedrunning this game, that would be probably the way you want to play, because it seems like in some ways the rate of fire is dependent on how fast you can mash that. I think it might be gated a little bit, but
it is limited by what's on the screen, how much can be on the screen at once. But if you're right next to an enemy, they immediately disappear. So I think you can just mash super fast.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, the boss of this stage, especially if you use Metal Blade, you don't have to worry about them spawning above you because you can shoot diagonally and you can shoot up. So again, that's the real power of Metal Blade, I think.
I almost feel like this game, I need to play again with this knowledge because it might be a completely different experience for me.
It makes things a lot easier, certainly. Because see, here you're having to wait for it to come down to you,
up,
and if it's a bad angle, it's going to take too long. And once they start moving faster, it's just you're almost guaranteed to get hit.
And you do need to wait for them to coalesce before you can shoot them. So they come as individual blocks, and it isn't until they attach and it kind of expands a little bit larger, and there's like a little flashing light. Once that flashing light appears, that's when you can shoot them. Mm-hmm. And the real tricky ones are the ones that come from the floor itself. So you have to kind of memorize where they're coming from, because it's liable to just like wake up and damage you right away.
Yeah.
But I think this one probably took me, oh gosh, I want to say like 15 tries.
Oh,
and it was always like I would get to the last 2 blocks and it would just, they'd come at me at a weird angle, and it's one of those things where you freak out and you're like, okay, I just need one more hit, and then it's like but it's on you and you don't want to move because you're like, okay, I think I can chicken this one out.
Yeah, right.
And you end up losing.
Oh no, that was one try with Metal Blade because it never got anywhere near me.
Now we move on to stage 3 on the Wily's Fortress, and again, this is the crash blocks. And I think at this point I've realized that there's something about it, and so I don't know. I was like, there's got to be something here because there's absolutely no way to jump over that. So I'm like, okay, crash bombs will blow that up there. And for people that are watching the video, I just want to remind, because you might be seeing this weird flickering, and that's not an emulation issue. It's how I captured the video here. So again, I was capturing at 30 frames a second. I was capturing it at 60 frames a second, but it was only actually being input as 30 frames. So it was, when I take damage, I would actually often flicker, which makes a really interesting challenge when there's a boss you're trying to dodge bullets from and you can't see your character. So there were some times I just kind of brute forced my way through things and I couldn't really see what was going on.
Yeah, kind of on that note, this is a pretty early game, like Nintendo and everything, so they would have issues with like memory. So sometimes if there's enough shots on the screen or enemies on the screen, stuff will just despawn, like including items that you're trying to pick up and this and that. So it's kind of something you have to work with, but it's not usually too much of an issue.
Well, I've certainly seen speed runs where they actually have to kill, so it's like an auto scroller, and they have to make sure to kill enough enemies, or else the stage will actually slow down. I think that's really interesting. So the boss of this level, level 3, is this. I think he's actually Gutsman.
Oh, yeah, he does look like him. He's just like a big tank.
Yeah, they sort of repurposed Gutsman from the first one, I believe, and he has this fist that comes down and tries to smash you. I used the Flashman power on him, which was a drag because you have to just sit there, and both you and the boss are just looking at each other saying, all right, well, we got another 5 seconds here, so we're just going to wait it out and then start the fight again, because it doesn't do any damage to him.
Right, and if you use the time stop weapon, then it has to drain the entire thing, and it slowly drains your power until it runs out, and if it doesn't do anything, then you just have to chill. Now,
backing up a little bit, because we got to the boss really quickly, but I wanted to mention the spikes in the 3rd level, because there's a lot of these spikes you have to navigate, and there's sections where you're falling vertically, and, and the spikes are, so you'll progress through multiple screens, and the spikes will change. So it's like you got to move to the right, and then you got to move to the left as you're falling, and some of them are kind of tight squeezes, and it almost reminded me of there's a series called like You Want to Be the Man, or there's a whole
I Want to Be the Guy.
I Want to Be the Guy. And so it reminded me of a kind of a lesser version of that, where it's just like these real tight scenarios you just kind of have to know and learn, but it really feels good when you get past that and you're like, oh cool, I got through the spike level without dying.
The whole design of Mega Man, if you're not familiar with if you've never seen it before, is you basically have one screen at a time, and upon reaching say you spawn at the bottom of the screen, maybe you're climbing up, you need to reach the top, the ceiling, then everything will kind of stop, and the screen will transition to the next screen, and it kind of stops time while it does that, and then you pick up where you left off. So what he's talking about with this section where you're falling, and there's like basically a clear path in between spikes. You're falling straight down, and then you hit the transition, and while the screen is kind of moving, you have to see the spikes as they're coming, and change your position while you're falling to make sure that you don't get hit by the spikes on the way.
Yeah, that's a really great description there.
Well, it's just I'm trying to imagine if you don't know, if you haven't seen it, how exactly the levels work and everything. It's kind of a unique thing of, Zelda does this also, and Mega Man is kind of a popular early thing to do.
Yeah.
Sort of transition.
And so on to stage number 4, we have more of these platforms that are on tracks, and they're kind of going all over the place, and you have to stand on them, and there's enemies coming at you, and there's obstacles you have to jump on, and sometimes you have to jump off the platform, let the platform traverse places that you wouldn't normally be able to get to because maybe it's too small, and then it comes back out, and then you have to jump onto it again and resume the path there. And a lot of them, there's spikes at the very bottom, so if you fall or get hit by an enemy, you die. But thing is, if you get hit by an enemy, you have these iframes, so you can kind of just like get hit by an enemy, jump on the spikes, run to the exit, and move on to the next level before.
Hey, what the heck? I'm just noticing. So sorry.
I know what you're gonna ask.
Okay.
So he's talking about the end boss here. For when I went into this room, there's supposed to be these girders we've been talking about that are blocking. There's like 5 weak spots in the room. So it's not a boss per se. It's like a room where you have to hit these 5 weak points, but all these weak spots are guarded by these girders. But if you die, it doesn't reset the entire room. It only resets the boss nodes. So I went through the boss once, and I killed like 4 of the girders. Yeah. And then I died, and when I went back in there, only 1 girder had remained because I hadn't killed that one.
Okay, that's cool. So because you have to have Crash Bomb to damage that boss. Yeah. And you can only destroy, if you have a full charge of Crash Bomb, you can only destroy 2 gates. And then the rest of your power you need to use.
Oh, is that right?
On the orbs. That's right.
Oh, okay. So that's interesting.
I was thinking maybe yours had glitched out upon coming back because I don't recall.
All right, so it is very possible this is an emulator issue, but it seems like that would be a weird emulator issue.
Because that boss is very annoying for that fact that you have to, you cannot miss a shot, and you can only, like, there's 4 or 5 gates in that fight, and you can only destroy 2 of them, and the rest you have to
I didn't realize that because a lot of times I would miss a shot and then shoot again, and so I would maybe, like, if I hit like 7 successes, I'd have maybe like 3 failures from a total of 10 shots or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
And so I just assumed that, they budgeted this out, so if you had full things, you'd have to do it perfectly. I didn't realize that maybe you actually have to not shoot all those girders. So that's actually interesting.
Somebody says that that's the only way they ever learn to kill that guy. You have to die and then refarm Crash Bomb.
Okay, there you go.
Don't you respawn in the room right before the boss if you die? So.
But you can always go back.
Can you? I didn't think that you could.
I can't remember. I don't remember if those are bosses. All right, so in the normal bosses, there's almost an airlock where you open up a gate and there's nothing here, and there's a gate, and you walk into the boss room. But I actually don't remember if that airlock exists for those 4 bosses that we just fought, or if it's just you hit the gate and then you move on to the boss.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Maybe chat will remember there.
I'm not sure. Anyways, you had an easy time with that boss then.
Yeah.
But hey, I would take it if I could.
Hey, well, you got to use metal blades in the diagonal shooting, so I
true.
think we're fair on that one.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
And the last thing you really do after those 4 levels is you have a boss gauntlet stage, which I guess is level 5.
Sure. Yeah, it's a boss rush where you have to refight all of the bosses that you killed before, and you have to do it. Once you kill a boss, they'll drop a big health. We didn't really talk about power-ups, but there's power-ups to refill your weapon energy. There's small and big. There's power-ups to restore your health. There's small and big. And then there's extra lives, and I think that's it.
Yep, I think that's it.
So whenever you kill a boss on this boss rush, they'll drop a big health, which is probably about a third of your health, maybe a quarter.
Somewhere, I actually think it's closer to a half, but maybe it's just under a half. Maybe, like you said, between a fourth, a third, and a half, whatever.
But you don't get really any energy back for your weapons.
Right.
So you kind of have to think about that and figure out the weaknesses so that you use your ammo most efficiently.
Yeah. And what I ended up doing was there were some bosses that were easy, like super easy. I could kill it without really taking much damage. So I would stagger things. So I'd be like, all right, well, this one I have difficulties with, so I'm going to come out of this with maybe 1/4 my health. But then I'll go into the next boss I'll kill that without a problem. And then that was really cool because it was this thing. It's a strategy of like you said, conserving your ammo, and this really allowed you to determine how best to kill the bosses because you go in, all right, I just want to fight Airman. Try all the weapons. Great. I know which ones to use, and then you'd kind of map that out in your head and just remember that. And when you died, so you have lives in this game, and anytime you lose all your lives, you go back to the very beginning of the stage.
Right.
But in this one, the beginning of the stage is basically the boss rush. You have to do all the bosses again. So it really became a thing of just like trial and error and then resetting and just like, grinding your way through this. Now, the very last boss I kill is Flashman because all he does is kind of runs at you and jumps. And so if you're quick enough, you can just like mash on the button and kill him before he even gets to you. Yeah.
And after killing all 8 bosses, then you're in this kind of room with a bunch of teleporters. Each teleporter takes you to a boss. You don't know which one necessarily until you've done it. And then after you do all 8 bosses, a 9th teleporter activates, and you fight against this spaceship thing, this kind of steampunk.
Dr. Wily. So it has a big W on it.
It does have a big W on it.
And I don't show it in the video here, but I think you get it to half health, and then like doesn't he come out?
You deplete 1 health bar, and then he pops out of the top, and then you fight him again. And I think in both phases you use quick boomerang, I believe.
I think I might have. You're right.
That's the best weapon as far as I remember.
Quick boomerang, I believe, is what I used as well.
And then if you beat him, then he doesn't die or he doesn't explode. It's just I don't even think they show him like fly away or anything. It just goes, all right, next stage, and then
and you drop into this area where there's really all there is just little red droplets of blood.
Yeah,
from the
like little like slimes kind of dropping from the ceiling, and it's ominous. There's no music. There's no enemies. There's just this dripping slime from the ceiling, and you traverse that, and then you get to Dr. Wily, who turns into an alien.
And also, I don't know if you noticed, but when he first spawns in, he spawns with a UFO, and when he comes down, you can sort of see a shadow of something in front of it.
Oh.
Like it's like, I don't know if that's intended or not.
Sometimes with older games especially, they do hide, like they'll have stuff behind other things, and flickering will kind of reveal that, and maybe it's intended, maybe not.
But there's really only one way to kill this Dr. Wily, and it's not what you would think. It's not Metal Blade, Bubba.
No, it's not.
What is it?
Bubbles. It's
Bubbles.
Bubble gun.
Why would it be? Why would it be Bubbles?
I don't know.
So here's my thought. Dr. Wily is, so when you kill this alien Dr. Wily thing, the screen kind of fades in and you see you're in this control room, and Dr. Wily has this hologram or machine or something that he's like, oh, I was tricking you all along. So I'm thinking, what hurts robots?
Yeah, water. Shorting them out.
Shorting them out. So I guess that kind of makes sense if you think about it. But when you see this alien thing floating around, the last thing you think is, bubbles.
Yeah. You kind of have to go through everything and be like, what the heck do I use? Okay, that doesn't work. That's no good. That's no good. But yeah, bubbles it is.
Yeah. And so we did hit the end screen, and you see here Mega Man. He's doing a little strut here.
He's trudging home, I guess.
Through the different seasons, because he's changing colors.
Right.
He goes from like gray to pink.
They're showing the countryside with mountains in the background. And
a little bit of snow, and then rain. And then at the final scene, he's placed his helmet on like a hillside. Maybe that's his home or something. And I don't know, do you think he's like hanging up his hat for good? Because we know Mega Man's not done yet. But
right.
I don't know. Maybe that was what that was supposed to be.
Yeah, I don't really know the lore implications behind this. Perhaps he knows he works with Dr. Light, but maybe he's seeking to find his origin, and Dr. Light's giving him a little morsel of information to return to this town or something.
Did Mega Man ever have an origin story?
I don't know. I'm willing to bet that
I can almost guarantee there's a game
there's
called...
like Mega Man manga and stuff, right? So I'm sure there's
I was going to say, there's got to be a product out there called Mega Man Origins somewhere. It seems...
Mega Man Origins.
Right, yeah.
Maybe he just got a better helmet and he left the bad helmet behind in this town where Dr. Light made it for him. I don't know. Anyways.
That's Mega Man 2, and we did get 3 submissions to the Hall of Heroes.
Yes, we did.
As a reminder, the Hall of Heroes is an opportunity for everyone to, as Lobos says, flex their gamer cred.
That's right.
And every podcast, we have a game that we've chosen. And if you complete the game and take a photo of the end title screen with your name somewhere nearby, either DM me on Twitter at SaturdayMGaming, or you can shoot an email to SaturdayMorningGamingShow@gmail.com. And just include a link to the Imager link you've uploaded the image to, and put a little message there to celebrate your victory. So, Lobos, why don't you announce our Hall of Heroes entries? And also, each one of these will be earning 5 points for today's game.
That's right. So you said that you now have like a point system based on how long it took us to beat the game. Not necessarily like if I speedrun it or something, but like for like a casual playthrough, you'll be awarded points based on that amount of time.
So if it's less than 10 hours, it's 5 points, and then every 10 hours is 10 points. So if you have a game that's 25 hours, that's going to be 20 points. If you have a game that's 2 hours, that's 5 points. Again, points are made up and they don't matter, but it's kind of fun to...
But there is a leaderboard.
There is a leaderboard, ongoing. And I do post I have a really cool looking retro high score thing I post on the Twitter thing, and I'll be updating that with entrance to the Halls of Heroes.
And I will say, I don't think we have any repeats this week, right?
They are all new.
So everybody that is on the leaderboard at this point will be tied, because last week was
10 points, actually.
Last week was 10.
Yeah,
Wait, what was the Link to the Past?
Link to the Past. It took me like 13 hours.
Okay, fair enough. Then you'll need to do a little bit more to catch up.
So Lobos, why don't you introduce us to our new inductees to the Hall of Heroes?
Indeed, we've got Gaming Steiner, who said, "Been a long time coming."
Congrats, Gaming Steiner.
2. The Kyle Mack, who said, "Mega to the max."
Mega to the max.
And Brisk Mountain, who said, "I hope I did this right. Very excited to be in the Hall of Heroes." Thank you guys for your submissions.
Thank you, Brisk Mountain.
We will be updating that leaderboard, and we should probably have that leaderboard ready at some point so that we can show on stream.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that.
But otherwise, again, thank you guys for joining us so much. We did Link to the Past last week. This is our second episode. We've done Mega Man 2.
Yeah, we got
some more stuff in store for sure.
Right, yeah. So we've reached the end credits of Mega Man 2. Let's actually talk about the next game we're going to be playing.
Sure. I will announce it. The next game that we are covering is Super Metroid.
Wow. Super Metroid.
These
for
games.
The Super Nintendo.
Is hitting me right in the heart. I love it. It's
good.
It's good
This
stuff.
one's a little bit different. Generally, we do a game every other week, but unfortunately, we will not be able to do it on July 6th, which is the usual 2-week cadence, but we're going to do a little bonus episode. So this game is going to be done June 29th. So that's 1 week.
That'll be next Saturday. So if you want to complete Super Metroid for Hall of Heroes, you got to do it in a week.
And you can do it. It's a long game.
You can do it, and it's worth it too. Super Metroid
absolutely.
is a gem of a game.
Well, I wanted to thank everyone for joining us today. I wanted to give a special thanks to TechnoAxe for much of the music for the podcast.
Awesome. Be sure to watch us if you want to watch us live on video, twitch.tv/LobosJr. Subscribe to the podcast on your favorite site. We got it on iTunes, we're on Spotify, and all those things.
And make sure to follow us on Saturday M Gaming on Twitter. And if you have any comments or questions or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. SaturdayMorningGamingShow@gmail.com.
Heck yeah. For Saturday Morning Gaming Show, I am Lobos.
And I'm Ryan. We'll see you on June 29th for Super Metroid.